Hey, hello, and welcome to Coffee with Dr. Carla. I'm Dr. Carla, this is Carson and Danielle, and we're glad that you're here with us today. Our goal is to talk about some mental health related issues and hopefully start to end the stigma surrounding them. So today we're going to talk about like knowing your value and not giving things away for free. To not be in that desperate place where you're so desperate to get work or to to connect with a particular person that you start to devalue who you are as a person as well as your work, right? And I know that in the years that I've been chairing our business ownership special interest group, the idea of pricing comes up over and over and over and over again. And maybe if I can get my foot in, if I do this free this or this free that, and there's not a way to translate that into, or at least not a reasonable way, or maybe even an obvious way to translate that into money, right? So I know that shows up in one way, but then I also think about how does that show up with like relationships. So like if I'm willing to compromise myself, which is basically what you're doing, say in a dating relationship, I'm willing to compromise, and then thinking that eventually it will shift into the relationship I want. Well, it doesn't, because I've just taught this person how to treat me, right? Sure. So whether we're talking about personal or professional, it's the same thing. So I do, I know that today we're going to talk a little bit more professionally, but, Carson, I want you to talk a little bit about, right before we started, you said, to be so desperate that you would do anything to get business, even if it meant free. Eventually, harming you in some way by, giving things away for free or, kind of basically suggesting to people that what you have to offer isn't of value, right?
For sure. Yeah, when my business first started, I was facing a lot of rejection and just having a really hard time, and I was feeling the pressure of no longer being a student, like, needing money in a different way. And so I felt like I wanted to do anything to win people over. And once I won them over, then I'll charge them, and then they'll know I'm great and it'll be fine. And the funny thing is, like, the business side of this work is not something that interests me, and I always felt kind of gross talking about money and how much it's going to cost for me to essentially just like be a good person and like do the thing I want to do. And so I thought in my head like I was being kind and caring by saying no, like I'll just do it for free. But in reality, I'm not being kind and caring to myself, because I'm saying all my hard work and my efforts and my time and those things like don't matter.
Right.
And so it was kind of having the opposite effect, even though in my head I was like, it feels good to not talk about it or think about it and just do things out of the goodness of your heart. But I'm like, in the long run, that's not really happening.
And it's interesting because when you did your internship, right, and you approach these different people, you're like, I'm in school, I'm a student, I'm an intern. That is the reason why I can offer these services for free, because it's part of my program. It's like inherently
I'm gaining hours and experience. Like,
right. And so still, typically interns don't get paid. I mean, at least in these fields, but but I do know that we had many conversations about very intentionally planting seeds, saying, so then to continue this, right, to, so next year if you want me to continue to do that, because that was the feedback you were getting, it will be a paying, thing. This is, we will need to talk about pricing. And I believe a lot of people are like, oh yeah, I get that. And then, this year after you graduated, now it's almost a year ago, you started going down that road and you're like, okay, so remember last year when we talked about the fact that I'm going to transition from student to a professional, and they're like, oh yeah, and then nobody wants to pay, because why would they were getting it for free. But even more interesting is so there's that aspect, but then there were several places that I remember you probably called them and emailed them a gazillion times offering them free services and they still wouldn't bite, right? So sometimes free doesn't get you in the door either, right? So, yeah, it's a very interesting perspective.
And I think sometimes that free, trying to get in the door, someone sniffs that out anyways, that it's not going to be free. We're going to try to market our sales in a way that feels uncomfortable for them. So you don't even want to let that salesperson up to your door, so to speak, to even talk to you. So I think being transparent with payments and what is the rate is really the best way to establish an honest and open relationship, to let both people feel respected. That you're letting them make a decision with all the cards on the table, and then they can take it or leave it. But you'd love to work with them, but if they take it, if they leave it, then thank you for your time.
And when you present these things and you're hesitant, or there, uncertainty maybe in your voice, maybe not as confident in your presentation, then that's going to get picked up on, whether you think you pulled it off or not. And asking people for money and setting my rate at what would be a reasonable rate, I still have the mindset sometimes. I'm like, oh, you can't pay? Oh, I'll give it to you for free.
Right.
Thank God I have Eva going, no.
That's what and
by the way, not only no, but like, we just raised your hourly rate. I'm like, okay, cool. Right? Like, so she does that for me. And then because she's been doing that for me, I can say, oh no, my hourly rate is such and such. Yeah. Why? Because Eva said it was, right? I mean, everyone needs an Eva. She's not available, sorry. But the reality of it is,
it's not for sale.
It's not for sale, right? But that's really important. So that when you can project that confidence because of that, it really helps.
That's really important too, the confidence piece, because that's been a big learning curve for us. Is like, now you've had to kind of coach me, like, don't word things in this way or say things this way or offer, to just come to practices as well because you want to, and like teaching me the value of that and the importance as like a business person and like just a person in this field, how you word things and how you talk about like yourself and your services. So I guess like how you're my Eva essentially, and like, no, don't do that. Like, you need to make a living. So like, how is that being that role, I guess?
Right. And I know that for me, a big thing was like, well, then I won't have any clients. And I've taken a lot of mastermind classes or done little workshops around that type of stuff. And the reality of it is, if this person doesn't want my services at a fair, rate, then they don't want my services. That's fine. There's plenty of other people who do. Yes. And so it's interesting. I can't remember exactly how it was worded, but in one of those classes they were talking about the fact that you need to set your rate such that you get more no's, like, no, that's too expensive, than you do yeses, because then you know that you're in the right range. And I remember thinking at the time going, yeah, like,
that makes me so uncomfortable. Yeah.
Right. And then, but the reality of it is, like, that's so true, because then as you unfold that a little bit more, do I want to work with just anybody, or do I want to work with a certain caliber or a certain niche or whatever the case may be, right? And so I think that was also really key as well.
And I think the idea of rate is obviously tied to something paper and green, but really when I think about it, it's tied to our self-worth as people that happen to have a profession, so when we're able to just set the tone of this is the rate, this is, again, like, at the end of the day, like, we also have to feel good about ourselves, how we go to bed at night. And so if we're respecting ourselves, we're able to show up in the work full integrity and full focus, that like, I'm respecting the work I've done, the schooling I've had, the hours I've put in, and that someone who wants to pony up and respect it too, like, we'll do great work together.
Right. Right. Yeah. It's a hard thing to embrace, but the more you do, the easier it does get. And finding those other people to lean into to help you with it, if that's not your natural tendency, is also, so very useful. And I just want to reiterate one more time, like, we're talking about a business aspect, but again, take these same principles and apply it to a relationship, right? You have to know your value and what you bring to a relationship, whether it's a business one or a personal one, and you need to hold to that, and not be so afraid that you're not going to get whatever that is, or have that person, or you might be alone, or whatever the case may be, because overall you're not going to be able to, you're not going to do well, if you keep compromising like that. So remember, you can change your thoughts, discover your potential, and transform your life by focusing on your overall well-being. Till next time, continue working on being the best you possible. Bye now.